Now, Ben, you've been writing about energy systems for many years. Are Australians politicians giving taxpayers the best value for money and the highest degree of technical expertise, or is something else going on with our energy grids?
Yeah, I think we're falling into the latter category, Alexandra. So I describe it, if the so-called energy transition was going well, then we wouldn't be talking about it. So an engineer like me discussing possibly the most driest, boring subject matter on earth, to be honest, I'd be the last person on your show, and you wouldn't be talking to me. But it's not going well, clearly. Electricity is beyond important. It was important in the 50s, but now it's basically the end of our society if we don't have it for any extended periods. Think about your clean water and sewage systems, refrigeration for food and medicine. It's that important. So I like to talk to people when I'm trying to impress upon them that we're in a dire situation. Is that we've evolved, our society has evolved due to the availability of cheap and ubiquitous electricity. Without it, we'd be living in some kind of apocalypse that belongs on Netflix. So I'm not gonna try and tell you that we're on the brink of losing everything. It's not that way. It's just a death of 1,000 cuts, and everything's going to be cost more. So I think it bothers me that something that's important has become a plaything of our political leaders and their activists.
Well, you and me would probably be okay if we had no power for a week. I mean, I'm a farm girl. I know how to get the kerosene lamps out. You know, I can use the well and everything. It's all fine. But I don't think Gen Z would be pretty happy if their iPhones and their apps went dark for a while. No TikTok would be the end of civilization. But I mean, we used to talk about energy only when we had giant storms come through and there'd be blackouts. But now we're quite seriously talking about there being power sharing and long blackouts going on in cities, and I even saw that they're worried they can't keep our steel mills operational. Is there a genuine problem on the horizon if something doesn't change for our energy system?
Yeah, definitely. And the first place it's going to show up, to be honest, is in New South Wales. So everyone's heard about the forthcoming closure of Eraring Power Station. It's quite a big one. And what I'd suggest is that the State Minister, Mr. Minns, is going to be struggling to find a way to keep that open. I think a couple of years ago, I was listening to a podcast with Frank Calabria when he was announcing the closure of Origin's largest coal-fired power station, only coal-fired power station, and he said that he'd be replacing it with gas for days and weeks, is a literal quote. So if we have to rely on gas to replace baseload coal, then life is going to get very, very expensive for Australians.
Oh, but we're not allowed to have gas for cooking in our kitchens, though. Just gas for the power stations, and that's it. Now, this goes beyond Australia, doesn't it? We've got, Australia's energy decisions are effectively decreed by the United Nations, regulated by the European Union, and orchestrated by the World Economic Forum. Our ministers have turned into these sort of little messengers for the global energy revolution. Now, we're being told that the figure for transitioning to this renewable utopia by 2050 is somewhere in the region of $120 trillion for the world. Now, you're an engineer. Would that be the final figure, or would we be stuck replacing these energy grids every 20 odd years?
Well, Alexandra, you've nailed it. So this is a cost to get there. It's not a cost to operate it and maintain it and replace these things for forever and ever. So these days, the renewable energy industry is one hell of a big business. Worse, it's pushed by those ultranational organisations you mentioned, BlackRock, globalist organisations like the WHO and the WEF and the UN, and these are the same interests that gave us such good advice during COVID. They all want open borders, higher taxes, fewer laws, and less ownership. Do we need to appease these people, or should we just do our own thing?
Well, this is what first alerted me to your plight. This week, you got kicked off the Smart Energy Council's webinar, which was featuring Chris Bowen. Now, I want to know, what did you do to hurt Bowen's feelings so badly you got kicked off?
To be fair to the Smart Energy Council, it was towards the end, and Mr. Bowen wasn't there anymore. And apparently, what he said was not that great to start with. There was a bit of a love in, as you can imagine. But no, in these webinars, there's quite often an open chat. And good on the Smart Energy Council for letting anybody turn up, but they didn't want to let me see the end of the show. So I did ask a few questions in the chat. I just came across to them and said, look, I'm a bit skeptical that the renewables can lower the prices. Can anyone help me and explain it? And a couple of questions like that was enough to get me booted.
I think the problem was you asked for details on costings, and nobody likes to hear the price tag of some of these things.